Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Dan Hiscock. This evening we warmly welcome the family of Lieutenant Michael Kenneth Housdan Fussell, whose story will be told shortly. Our reader tonight from the Australian Army is Captain Dan Fussell, Lieutenant Michael Fussell's brother. We warmly welcome representatives of the Armidale Blues Rugby and Netball Club and the representatives from the Royal Military College Duntroon who are attending this evening's ceremony. Their teams were scheduled to compete in the Michael Fussell Memorial Day tournament at the Duntroon Sporting Fields tomorrow, but regrettably, due to the heavy rainfall this week, the tournament has had to be postponed. When the tournament is able to proceed later in the year, the proceeds raised will provide funds for veterans charities including Soldier On and RSL Australia to provide support for the community that Mike called his brothers and sisters in arms. The Armidale Rugby Club represents Mike's roots, where he grew up and where he first strapped on rugby boots. The Royal Military College, Duntroon, represents where Mike embarked on the career he thrived in and where he committed himself to the service that he eventually gave his life for. This evening we also warmly welcome Chairman Peter Lay and Chief Executive Officer Prue Slaughter, representing Soldier On, and Mr Phil Winter, Chief Executive Officer of RSL National, and Mr Ray James, President of the New South Wales branch of the RSL. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Lieutenant Michael Kenneth Housdan Fussell. Mike was born on the 17th of November 1983 at Coffs Harbour, New South Wales. He was the firstborn of Ken and Madeline, an elder brother to Dan, myself, and sister Naya. Ken was a forest manager for State Forest New South Wales, and Madeline was an early childhood educator. A year after Mike was born, Ken's work took the family to Tamworth, where they lived for the next 9 years. After a year in Walker, they moved to Arding between Armidale and Uralla, where they settled on a 20-acre property in 1994. Mike received his early education at St Edward's Primary School in Tamworth, then Walker Central School and the Armidale School. He was a cheeky red-headed lad who loved growing up in rural New South Wales. Mike always had a great love for animals, especially dogs and horses, and he rode in competitions including jumping and polo cross. He was at his happiest on a horse, the rugby field, or a surfboard. Mike was a loyal, dedicated and empathetic young man and a good friend to many. He was also a very thoughtful and caring son and brother. Riding home from Afghanistan, Mike expressed his respect for his parents, for the manner in which they had brought him up, and that he could not have hoped for a better childhood. After finishing school, Mike enlisted in the Australian Army in January 2002 and was appointed as an officer cadet at the Australian Defence Force Academy in Canberra. He continued to play rugby whilst also completing a Bachelor of Arts degree. In 2005, he attended the Royal Military College Duntroon, commissioning in December that year into the Royal Regiment of Australian Artillery. Upon graduation, Mike was posted to A Field Battery, 4th Field Regiment. During this time, he also qualified as a paratrooper. After serving in Timor-Leste in 2006 and 2007, Mike was posted to the 4th Battalion, the Royal Australian Regiment Commandos, as a Joint Offensive Support Team Commander. He was later a platoon commander for the Advanced Infantry Course at Singleton and also completed the Joint Terminal Attack Controller course. Mike deployed to Afghanistan on the 4th of November 2008 with 4RAR joining the Special Operations Task Group. Its role was to provide security in Uruzgan province by disrupting the Taliban and to provide support to the Reconstruction Task Force. Mike's role was the Senior Joint Terminal Attack Controller, being highly trained to call in direct support from airstrikes and artillery. Late on the night of the 26th of November, Force Element Charlie, mostly men from one commando company, set out on an operation to the northeast of the Australian base at Tarankout. Mike was part of this team as the JTAC specialist. Its mission was to clear some compounds where insurgent leaders were suspected to be located. After leaving their vehicles in the desert, the patrol proceeded on foot toward the Mirabad Valley. It was a freezing cold night. Up into the rugged hills, devoid of any vegetation, they moved quickly towards the target. In the early hours of the 27th of November, Force Element Charlie was approximately 1 kilometre south of the village of Nowjoy. Approaching its target at approximately 1:12 a.m, as the men pressed on through the darkness, Mike stepped on an IED, an improvised explosive device. The blast killed him instantly and wounded 2 others. After clearing a safe path to where Mike lay, a stretcher party carried his body out and a helicopter transported him back to base. Mike's body was returned to Australia on the 3rd of December. 4RAR formed a Guard of Honour as his casket was carried off the aircraft by his tri-service ADFA mates and myself. After the funeral in Armidale, Mike was cremated and his ashes were scattered in the ocean at Diggers Beach, Coffs Harbour, one of his favourite surf beaches, and close to where Madeline and Ken now live. He was 25 years old. There are plaques in remembrance of Mike placed in the Garden of Remembrance in Rookwood, Uralla, Armidale and Sawtell Memorial Parks. The family is deeply grateful for the communities that have instigated these tributes in Mike's memory. Mike's training, professionalism, expertise and charisma meant his loss was deeply felt across the Defence Force. But to his family, the blow was hardest. A much-loved son and brother was so suddenly gone. On Remembrance Day 1993, a 9-year-old Mike Fussell was watching on television the interment of the unknown Australian soldier here at the Australian War Memorial. Ever thoughtful, it moved him to write a poem. The penultimate stanza read, "He was faithful to his country and faithful to his family and friends, but he didn't come back alive." Mike's name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left among the 45 Australians who have died during or as a result of their service in Afghanistan. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Lieutenant Michael Kenneth Housdan Fussell, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director and staff, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorials Development Project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.